Ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies, episode 3 of the Risk Factor podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. It's been a few days since our last podcast. Not a whole bunch has been going on as we're in between major 3 and 4. But I'm super excited. I was able to craft up a little bit of a podcast here, or topics that we could talk about. Some few changes have just recently gone down, which won't reflect in some of the graphics that I have here. So I'm glad that we are able to do this one more time. Major 4's around the corner, starts this weekend, the qualifiers. And week 1, like I said, will be starting, might just start Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure. But we'll jump straight into it. We really got 2 main things that we're going to do. Here, I've been able to create a pyramid of the top 48 players in the league. So everyone in the league, I have them structured in a pyramid, and you'll be able to see the different tiers, and I'll talk about why I placed them. And then towards the later half of the video, we actually are going to be going over our match predictions for week 1 of the major. So stick around to watch that as well. So let's jump into the pyramid right here. So not sure what we're going to call this bit, but Risk Dreams pyramid of players, something like that. Risk Dreams tiers at CDL pros. Unfortunately, at the end of the pyramid, there are 3 players left over, since the pyramid forms about 45 perfectly, and there's 48 pros, 4 per team, of course. I was able to get Yuli in here, as he's going to be replacing, on the London Royal Ravens, Asim, right? He's replacing Asim. Yeah, so he'll be at the bottom since we haven't seen him yet. Also, in breaking news as of today, Attach is also going to be replaced by Fame. So if I had this prepared with that knowledge coming out, so shortly after, I would have had him down here. We just haven't seen anything from them. There's nothing to really expect. So he would have been down here at the bottom. We'll see Attach pop up here. I'm really surprised that Attach was the player to be benched by the Rocker. Especially, I don't know. I just feel like Attach wasn't the right move. I feel like that after having such a bad stage, going 0-6 in matches, losing all your qualifiers, getting last place at the major, a change was necessary. I don't think this change is really going to change too much. Subbing one guy out, one guy in, unless he turns out to be a superstar. I feel like the Rocker are just on the slippery slope, and I'm not sure if this is really going to slow them down, or if it's not going to change much. But here, talk a little bit more about our cities. The Gorillas have not been playing very well recently, and he specifically has been standing out to me as someone that's kind of lacking. Unfortunately, we saw at Major 4 or at Major 3, he was having the thumb issue and had to be taken out of the match and replaced by the coach and their sub. So that didn't help either. His stats at the Major were pretty poor. However, I feel like recently he's been playing pretty poor also. I feel like it may be more of a mental thing. Not sure if he's happy with where he is, but unfortunately he's going to be down there. Same thing with Capsule. He's on a team that hasn't been performing very well, so he was kind of put into a bad situation, where I do think Cap can be a good player at times. It seems like his speed gets the better of him. So just for those reasons, I have him here at the bottom alongside our cities. We're going to kind of go through these first few tiers a little bit quicker, just because there are 48 pros, so we can't sit here and go over every single one. But I do want to mention why I had these guys kind of left out of the actual pyramid, and you'll be seeing this here. So at our bottom tier, I believe there's 9 more tiers. So at the bottom tier, if we just go here, yeah. Okay. So we have Vivid, Accuracy, Joda Thieves, Fellow, Bance, Cammy, Asim, Priesta, Scraps. Now, taking this for face value, you'll see some players who may surprise you, some players who may not surprise you. Vivid, he seems like the sore thumb on this team. He's really inconsistent. At times he can be good, but oftentimes he's not. I feel like if Boston was to make a change, he would be the player. Accuracy on the surge, I feel like this is like a no-brainer. He really is the underwhelming player on the team. I know that it's said that he brings leadership value to the team, but I'm not sure how far that really goes. And in comparison to picking up another player who could really help out with the pace or just help out with playmaking in general. Joe Deceives, another player on the Gorillas, so now that's 2 players that we see here towards the bottom of the brackets. He's just kind of been underwhelming. The Gorillas as a whole have kind of been underwhelming, so you'll see that a lot of them aren't very high up on this list, and that's for the same reason why Fellow is on here. He's been in the league a few times. He's never really been a player to stand out to me. His stats throughout this past major were not great as well. So for those reasons, that's why he's down here. Bance, Cammy, side by side, both part of the rocker. They both go 0-6. Seeing Bance down here doesn't necessarily surprise me, although during Major 2, he was doing very, very well. However, the entirety of Major 3, he was doing very poor. Same thing with Cammy. Major 2, he didn't do necessarily as good as Bance, but not necessarily bad either. But Major 3, terrible. So we've just seen recently that they have just not been on top of their game. And I'm surprised to see Cammy here after seeing what he's been able to do in the past. Even as early as the beginning of this year, they looked like a pretty decent team. So both of the rocker guys side by side. And that's kind of why I was surprised that Attach got replaced by Fame, because I feel like maybe someone like Bance being replaced would make more sense. I'm assuming Fame is an AR since, Attach is being replaced here. So maybe they didn't want to replace someone like Bance with Fame. But I feel like if anything, maybe skip on Fame and pick up a submachine gun player and replace Bance. But I'm sure there's more that went into it other than just what we can see as a consumer of the matches. And then we have Asim here, who's one of my personal favorite players in the league. I love watching him. And it's unfortunate to see what's been going on recently with him. Not playing great at all, not playing good at all. The Ravens have just been very bad, probably the worst team consistently all year. So there's not much to say about him or Scraps on the other side. Scraps coming back into the league after a hiatus, now found a team. Unfortunately, the team hasn't been doing very well. Same thing with Scraps, not playing to his top potential. Then we have Priesta, who was Major 1 champion. New York was looking like a really solid squad. But I think they just kind of had the jump on people at the beginning of the year, and now that their other teams are figuring out ways to play certain modes or maps, the subliners just falling behind, and Priest is one of those players who have stood out as someone who was kind of lacking. So he's going to be down there as well in that bottom tier. And now on our next tier, we have Hixie, Assault, TJ, Beans, Octane, Kismet, Attach, and Havoc. Hixie, he played pretty decent, man. I mean, he definitely wasn't popping off the way that Kleenex and Scrappy was. They won the most recent major. I think Hixie played pretty well, honestly. Coming in as a rookie, his first event, being subbed in right at the beginning of the major, I think he played really well. I think he has a lot of potential to pop up further onto this list, but with the sample size being so small, I feel like I couldn't have placed him any higher. We haven't seen enough of him to see how the development goes, see how further tournaments go, further qualifiers. So for now, we'll just leave him here, although I do have hopes that he'll probably be bumped up soon once we update this chart. Assault on the Gorillas, again, so that's now 3 players of the Gorillas in the bottom 3 tiers. It kind of speaks towards their placements. Assault's been a pretty solid player overall, kind of middle of the pack. World champion in World War II, so he definitely has what it takes to become a better player. I really kind of like his vibe and the way that he handles the game. His stats throughout the major were okay. They weren't great, but not detrimental. So I think with a different cast around him, or if he was to be a part of a different team, I think he would excel a little bit more. So I'm definitely interested in what happens going forward in the rest of the year or going into next year, because I do think that he could potentially be one of those players to start to get further up on the list. Maybe not towards the top, but probably up towards the middle, although he is pretty close to the middle now. Then we have TJ, part of the Vegas squad. he has been a monster at search and destroy. There's no one that can take that away from him. He really has been he's the player in search on this team that can go out and get that first blood. He's like the Walmart of BZ. So there's just nothing that you can take away from him when it comes to search. However, when it comes to control and hardpoint, it's definitely not his strong suit, but it's not detrimental either. I think this Vegas squad has something ahead of them, with someone like TJ being their worst player, and he's still on the third tier. It kind of speaks to what this Vegas team could do. So we have TJ there. Beans, he had a great major. Same thing as Hicksy. Honestly, Beans and Hicksy both surprised me. Beans even more had one of the best stat lines from the major. However, with such a small sample size, I don't think I can place him any higher for now. However, when we do update this, I do expect that he'll be able to come up higher on the list. And then you'll see here that we have Octane. Octane has been hot and cold, so we'll see him kind of similar to TJ, where, well, actually not really similar to TJ, more similar to Assault, where they've been around for a long time. Assault was obviously out of the league, where Octane has always been in the league, but I feel like Octane is now taking more of a back seat to some of the players on his team, and he's pretty inconsistent. We'll see him pop off in search. We'll see him do terrible in search, and the next game we'll see him do great in the hard point and then terrible in the hard point. He's just really inconsistent. More times than not, he's on his back heel, so we have him here alongside the rest of the cast of Kismet, Attach, and Havoc. Kismet has kind of been falling off recently for me. I feel like last year when we saw him in Vanguard, he was a problem on the map. I feel like this year he never really had that same presence on the map. I'm not sure if it's just the movement mechanics or the flow of the map or the flow of the team now that he has two other players alongside him with Priestess and Skies. But it just doesn't seem like he has the same impact as he used to. Definitely not the bottom tier of a player. The New York team has been falling off, like I mentioned, not placing very well. But Kismet has been holding his own in some degree, so that's why we have him here. Attached, kind of a similar story. He's been around for a long time, but we've seen him have success. However, I think as time goes on, we're seeing these older players kind of digress. Doesn't necessarily mean they should be out of the league. They just may not be the stars that they used to be. And then Havoc. Havoc was a player, man, that at the beginning of the year, Major 1, around that time, where he was playing really well. And even though the Florida team necessarily may have not been playing well, I feel like I would have had him higher because he was just playing at such he was just playing good COD. And now it feels like he's not playing such good COD as he was just a few months ago. So that's why we have him here. Jumping on to our next slide. Now this is where things start to get interesting. This is where we're probably coming through the middle of the pack. And we have Draza, Ghosty, Insight, Kenny, Mac, Exceed, and Brack. Draza was a player in Major 2 that was playing extremely well, where Major 3 he played extremely bad, especially at the Major. At the Major he was playing extremely bad. So I'm not sure how he's going to bounce back. He's on my fantasy squad, so I'm really hoping that he can. I really do think that he can, but we'll have to see. Just with the recent performance that we've seen on him, we can't place him any higher. And very similar, I'll jump over there to Kenny. Same story. Obviously, we saw them get second place at Major 2 to FaZe, so they were a very capable team. I think this Thieves team is still top 6. So it kind of makes sense to see a lot of their players right here in the middle, as I feel like they're now kind of like a middle of the pack team. Maybe top like 4-6 range there. And then we have Ghosty, newcomer. He played really, really well, honestly. He kind of did his job. He excelled this team very, very highly from where I feel like their gameplay was before. He's really selfish, doing everything that he can. His objective work is unmatched, and he's still getting some important kills when he needs them. We haven't seen a whole bunch out of him, so kind of like with Hicksy and Beans, I feel like we can't place him any higher, although alongside those other two rookies, I do think we'll see Ghosty excel up this list as well, as we kind of see in general, where the newcomers are starting to rise, and some of the vets we'll start to see digress, right? So there's those two players, or there's the first three. Then we have Insight, who is of course our Major 3 champion with Ultra. He was playing good COD, man. He statistically was the worst. You could kind of tell he just wasn't the playmaker. He was kind of running his role. He was playing his role well as a main AR. Nothing really too flashy. Nothing really out of the blue. So nothing that he does is really going to hurt his team, but not necessarily anything that he does is going to seriously improve his team's chances when they maybe didn't have any. So I feel like right in the middle of the pyramid makes a lot of sense for him. And then we have Mac, who is a player that is hot and cold. He is the Surge's X factor. When he plays well, the team plays well. When he doesn't play well, the team doesn't play well. Not to say that it's necessarily his fault, because you do have someone like Accuracy where I feel like that's not even necessarily an option for him to play well and then the team does well, because I feel like Mac is being that sub role alongside Pred. It's just when he's doing good, the subs take control of the maps and they take control of the flow. And Mac is the player that he has good games. He really does. There are games where he looks like the best player on the map, but there are games where he just isn't being very impactful at all. So right in the middle makes a lot of sense for me. I don't think there's much debate. I feel like a lot of people like where he is at now. Same thing with Exceed. Honestly, Exceed took me by surprise. This past major, he was making a lot of plays that seemed like he could almost like save this Gorilla Squad, but it just like wasn't enough. He was always like close to carrying. He's almost like close to doing enough, but at the end of the day, it was just never enough. I think that's all of our Gorillas players. Yeah, so that's all 4 of the Gorillas players already on this list. So it makes sense for their placements, really. And same thing with this London team. Or actually, no, we're missing one, right? Yeah. So Exceed is here, and then the last player, Brack. The whole Florida squad here is now here as well. Same thing with Brack. He honestly being dropped made no sense to me. He looked like the best player on the team. So for him being dropped during stage 2, that made no sense. They pick him back up, thankfully. He kind of takes his spot back. Not enough to hard carry the squad, kind of like Exceed. Not the best teammate situation as far as like skill-wise goes. Maybe on a different team he would be more successful, but he does look like the best player on the team. It's just not enough. Same thing with Exceed. He looks like the best player on the team, but it's just not enough to push him up any higher, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens with them going into the future years of the CDL. Jumping up, our last rocker player, Afro, who actually had not a great Major 3 by any means. I mean, they went 0-6, so obviously no one on that team had a great Major 3, but what we've seen from Afro this year alone in the previous majors and what we've seen years prior, Afro is still absolutely capable. He's still going to be a problem on the map for most teams. So I think having him here makes a lot of sense. Standy, who was on Ultra, gets dropped, now picked up by Vegas. So this is really interesting to me, because where they had someone like Too Real, who I probably would have had pretty low on this pyramid, they're picking up someone like Standy, who's a lot higher on the pyramid, towards the middle, starting to get pushed up towards the top of the pyramid. Standy played really well on Ultraman. I just feel like it may have been a personal thing, or maybe it was a pacing thing, but I think on Vegas he's going to do really well. Slasher, kind of in a similar boat as Insight. Both their teams are really great. Nothing he does is necessarily going to hurt this team, although, honestly, the reason that I have Slasher higher than Insight is because his S&D. His S&D has been really great this year. He has been helping his team out tremendously. However, his hardpoint control has been pretty lackluster. However, he has players on his team that can still outshine those flaws and make sure they still pull out the W at the end of the day. Slasher, I feel like, could be replaced by almost any of these ARs. Could be replaced by Glacier, could be replaced by Draza, could be replaced by Insight. And though that core 3 of Celium, Simp, and Abizi is still going to shine, where they just need their AR to play fundamental correct ARs as a correct AR role so the phase can continue to succeed. Slasher never does anything really too flashy or making any huge plays outside of S&D, but for his S&D and for, of course, his placements and whatnot, I feel like here makes a lot of sense, kind of just directly in the middle. And that's a very similar story to Clayster, and I'm not sure if it's just the 18 and cracked mentality or what, but Clayster has been an S&D mastermind this year alongside TJ, and they kind of have been a super dynamic duo, and they've just been closing out searches. They look like a very good search team. If they can just kind of get some hold of a control or a hard point on map pool, then they'll be all set. It hasn't been detrimental, Clayster's respawn, but it hasn't been great, but his S&D has been fantastic. Dasty kind of surprised me this past major. I feel like he wasn't playing great previously, but now I feel like after this past major, he just seemed to be playing really, really well. And we saw this last year from Nasty online, but at lane, he was just never able to put it together. However, this past lane, he had extremely good numbers, and he really did surprise me. So, I mean, I'm happy for him. Maybe this Yuli change will help them out, but we'll see what happens going forward. And then we have Hook. So, Hook is a player that was on LEG, did not look good at all. Again, I know I mentioned this. They let him walk for free. That's how you know he wasn't playing great, is they let him go for free. So for him to be coming onto this Optic team and just transcend the player that he is from F tier to B tier almost, like he's been playing really well aside by Shotty. His pacing with Shotty is great. He's been making a lot of great plays. He seems to be very hype, very vocal. He's been a really good player. I'm glad that he found a home on Optic, because he's been able to put things together for himself where it looked like it was starting to look scary for him on Gorillas. Even though they did win a major last year, I mean, it really didn't matter. As we saw, they still didn't qualify for champs even after winning a major, which is like insane to me that they weren't able to get any more CDL points elsewhere. But Luke's been playing great, man. So I think it makes sense that he's here. I think he has a lot of room to improve. But from where he was probably like down here before when he was on LAG. But to see him jump up to here, it's been great. Next year, so now we're starting to get towards that top 15 area. Yeah, top 15. So these are the players that are going to be standing out, the players that can really make a big difference on the team, and we see that with Temp. Temp is the player on this team that keeps them competitive in respawns. He's always holding it down with the AR. He always has a good KD. He's always making big plays, big two pieces when he needs them. So Temp has just been a monster in respawn, and that's exactly what this Vegas team needs. Without him, they would just be detrimental when it comes to control and hardpoint. So for him to be on this squad, he's kind of saving them almost. So that's why we have him here. He's just a respawn master. He's been doing it for years. Last year on this Vegas squad, he was doing the same thing. So it doesn't really matter who he has as his teammates. He's always going to be frying and keeping his team in the game. And his S&D, not necessarily a strong suit, but we still see him pop off time to time. And with the team that he has around him, it almost allows him to take a backseat role in the search, because people like Clayster and TJ are just going to be doing a lot of the work on the map to make sure that they get in the round wins. Sib's a player that it really not surprised me, but is a player that I think can rise on this list. He does seem like he can be a star. Just at times, I feel like he falls a little bit flat. And we're always talking about this Pred and Sib duo, or Pred and Sib, young talent on the surge that are making things happen, making big waves. But I feel like Sib isn't at that same tier as Pred. We see it. He had a great major 3. He played really well. However, there's times where I feel like he just falls a little bit flat. He doesn't necessarily do bad in a lot of matches, but there's a lot of matches where I kind of feel like he does just enough. And we'll see with the players above this tier where they really excel and they're doing more. than almost they have to or than they need to make sure that their team gets the W. I feel like we just haven't gotten that out of Sib yet. Big Wake. I'm glad Big Wake is on this list. He's really been striving. He's pushing this Boston team to new limits. We've seen him on a few different teams now in the CDL, and he's always just a menace on the map. He's holding it down. He's doing well. His stats look really good from this past major. I think this is a good spot for Wake, right? I'm not sure if we necessarily need him to be moving up, where I feel like some of his teammates could be moving up alongside with him, and this Boston team could have some success. And then we have Kleenex. Kleenex was a player that was probably down here, right, before, next to TJ and Assault on this tier. And after Ultra picked up Pixie, it really enabled Kleenex. It's probably a pacing situation where Hicksy's picking up certain parts of the map where Kleenex had to, where maybe it wasn't comfortable or it wasn't something that you would be able to thrive in. But now it looks like Hicksy's picking up parts of the map where he's just really doing his job, and he's doing it pretty well. And it's allowing Kleenex to kind of go a little bit more rogue, play a little bit more faster, a little bit more rattier, and get behind enemy lines, get important 2 pieces, 3 pieces, and he's dropping positive KDs, 1.1s, 1.2s, 1.3s on any given hard point or control. So he's been playing extremely well. His search and destroy has also improved. He's just been an all-around great player. Skies is the player on this team. He's kind of like Hydra's right-hand man. He's been playing really well. I'm not sure if I have him a little bit too high here with the recent performance from New York. However, I still feel like he played pretty well. He actually played really well, but unfortunately things just didn't work out for the New York team. And I feel like that's kind of like the story of this team. I feel like New York has a lot of players that can be like stars, but it just doesn't work. And then you look at the Thieves team where not necessarily any single one of them is like a star, but their chemistry and their cohesion, it just works. Not to say that like people like Kenny or Envoy or Jaza or can't be stars, but they just make it work. So this like Thieves squad and this New York squad are like polar opposites. So we'll see going forward if New York continues to fall. If they do, Skies will probably fall with them. If not, and they do pick it back up, I assume Skies is going to stay kind of right in this area, top 15 player. Makes a lot of sense for me. Okay. Yep, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so now we're into our top 10. Perfect. Top 10 players, we have Nero, Shotzi, Simp, and Envoy. Nero has been playing lights out, almost carrying this Boston squad, dropping crazy 1.1, 1.2s almost every match. He has been playing super fast paced. We saw from the minute that this game dropped during like those launch tournaments. He's just been on a different level this year. I'm sure he's putting in a ton of work because it's really showing, and it's really showing for the team's placements. They're looking like a top tier team, top 4 area. So top 4, top 6 area. So it makes a lot of sense to have him up here. He's definitely been the best player on the breach, and I'm happy for his success. Then we have Shotzi. Shotzi almost made it to the next tier, but I feel like it's been a little bit inconsistent from Shotzi. Sometimes we'll see him have absolutely ridiculous games like we saw on their losers bracket run, just insane games. But then other times we'll see him almost kind of throw situations that didn't have to be thrown, where a little bit more fundamental Call of Duty would improve the team. So if he's able to, kind of learn how to hold back, when to push, when not to push, when he gets into his flow state is a term that we've been hearing a lot in the COD scene recently. He's just the best player in the game. However, he's not the best player in the game every game. He's the best player in the game sometimes. So for those reasons, that's why he's here alongside Simp. Simp is an interesting story. He's a player that has probably been the best player in the game, or a debatable best player in the game, for like 4 straight years now. So he's been transcending Call of Duty. He's one of the main reasons why FaZe have been so dominant the past recent years. He already has 2 rings. There's nothing that you can take from him. I'm not sure if it was a team decision or just the way that things have gone, but he's taking a little bit of a backseat to some of his teammates, and that's kind of insane to me because this FaZe team is so good, and it just speaks because if you have Simp as your 3rd best player on the team, like, that's an unlosable team. Like, that team's not going to lose. They're going to win everything because their players are just so good. They're just so good that there's just nothing that you can really do. Even if they don't make the best play, that their individual skills will just carry them anyways. And I think that's something that Slasher brings to this team to try and help them out with making the correct play alongside their individual skill to really lock in those wins. And I think that's why we saw them win Major 2. They've been placing top 3 every event. I think I saw a stat that Sim placed top 3 like 30 out of his like 33 tournaments or something like that. So he's just a walking W. Can't take anything from him. Even though we have him as a top 10 player, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets pushed up. And even then, I don't think he has to for his team to win. So, Envoy. I'm really happy for Envoy, seeing him up here. He's not necessarily a flashy player, but he has been super impactful. When the Steve team is winning, it's because Envoy's being super impactful. He's hitting the correct routes at the correct times. He's holding down the correct angles when he needs to. He's making big plays when he has to. He's been statistically the best player on the team, almost looking like an MVP at times. If it wasn't for this last major where the Thieves didn't do so well, he would probably be in, question. But, the Thieves didn't have a great major, so we'll see how they bounce back. Envoy still played well. So Envoy's top 10, it makes a lot of sense to me. Now moving into our top 6 here. Or our top, I guess, top 6. 3 through 6. Scrappy, Celium, Dashy. Scrappy, best player on his team, had insane stats from the major. You cannot take that away from him. He played it lights out. He played insane, honestly. He played insane. All major long, he was just destroying everybody. Celium, we've seen what this guy is able to do. He's been playing extremely well. MVP contender. I believe he's in like 2nd or 3rd place for MVP voting, or like people assume he's in 2nd or 3rd place for MVP voting. And this FaZe team has seen a lot of success. Top 3, all 3 majors. We'll probably see them get top 3 again. So there's just nothing you can take away from him. He's been statistically a monster. He's been the hardest kill on the map. We see him doing crazy wall bangs. We see him trying to pick up insane 2 pieces, 3 pieces. The only thing that may hold him back at times is playing too safe. Sometimes trying to make a play can help out your team, because when it does work, it will improve your situation a lot. But being top 6 makes a lot of sense for Celium. You can't have him any lower. He's the snake god. I mean, look at he kind of transcended the pro play, because now everyone's snaking. Everyone knew how to snake. However, Celium said, F that, I'm a snake anyways, and now everyone's snaking. So he's like the Steph Curry of the league. He's making moves, okay? And then Dashy has been playing very, very, very good Call of Duty all year long. His stats have been outstanding. He's been honestly doing kind of how we expected. Last year he may have been an MVP, an MVP candidate, where this year he may not be, but he's just outside of that league, where he's still playing very well. This Optic team, of course, got 2nd place at the last major, and we saw them get 4th place the major before, where I do feel like they probably could have got anywhere above that if they didn't throw that match against the Thieves. But Brandon's just been playing lights out. He's been playing really well in all 3 game modes, and there is the occasional game where he doesn't play his best, but that's really rare for him, and I think that's why I have him so high up here. He's almost guaranteed to get you that 1.1, 1.2 kind of stat line, and he's just a cornerstone of this Optic team where he isn't necessarily ever going to throw any matches for you, but he'll always make sure that he's doing his job and he'll excel at it more so than maybe some of the other ARs will excel at it. We saw it versus the Boston match where he's doing his job, right? He's playing everything correctly, but then when his team needs him most, he pops off, gets that 3-piece on that Hydro Hill to make sure that they can continue on. So top 6 makes a lot of sense for Dashy. If Optic starts to play a little bit better as a whole, we may see him move up. Same thing with Shotzi, same thing with Celium, same thing with any of these people. Nero, Simp, Envoy, Scrappy. I feel like after the recent Rager, people may make a case for Scrappy to be higher on this list, but I feel like with the sample size, Major 2 didn't necessarily go great their way, but Major 3, he's been playing lights out. Definitely the best player on this tier from Major 3. I mean, it makes sense being the champion, but now going into our top 3 players, and I'm sure you know who is left, but 2 of the 3 here, we have Pred and Hydra. Hydra has been an extreme hard carry for this squad. His numbers have been ridiculous. They like 1.3s, 1.4s on series. And same thing with Pred. Kind of the similar stories for both of these squads. Squads where decent squads who have chances at winning, but it's at the forefront of their star players. They need Hydra and Pred to go insane in order for them to win, where oftentimes they do go insane. It's just, can they do it every single series? It's difficult. But they have been playing great Call of Duty, S-tier Call of Duty. There's not even much to say about this. Pred, of course, I feel like is on a team situation a little bit better than Hydra. Although now that I'm looking at it right now, we see Surge New York, we see Surge New York, we see Surge New York, and then we see Surge New York right here. And that might make sense. That might be the reason why I feel like Surge is in a little bit better of a situation. Maybe Mac is that X factor, and he's just a little bit more reliable than Kismet. But back to these top 2, Hydra and Pred, top 3 players in the league. They're in there for MVP contention, so I'm excited to see how this pans out because neither of these squads are top squads, but they are top dogs. So we'll see how they close out the year, and that leaves us with only 1 player left. We've probably been able to figure out who it is, of course, of the Atlanta phase. It is BZ. He has been a demon on the map, every game mode. Search and destroy wizard, search and destroy first blood genius. He has like 50% more first bloods than the second place player has first bloods. It's ridiculous. He is guaranteed for 1 every single round, and it's normally the opening pick, which allows his team to kind of take more space and just close out the game. There's a reason the phase we're on such a huge search and destroy streak, and I think it's really off of the back of a BZ. I mean, dude, it's just this Atlanta phase team is insane to me because I say that, but then I'm like, oh, they have Slasher who's dropping 1.7 in search and destroy this major. That's crazy. Oh, you have Simp who has the search and destroy kill record. That's crazy. Oh, you have Celium. Like, how is Celium going to be your worst player? It's just insane how good FaZe is, and it's at the head of a BZ. I'm glad that he's able to kind of take this spot in the league right now because I feel like last year, although FaZe did consistently get second place, they were probably overall the best team throughout the year. I feel like that was really up to Celium, where this year it's really up to a BZ. The game style probably just fits a lot better for him. He probably enjoys the game more. I'm sure their practice has been intense as all the other teams. So here's the top 48. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you would change. Let me know what you think's going to happen going into Major 4. Who's going to go up, who's going to go down. But this is where we're at. We'll probably do this every once in a while just to keep an update. Kind of looks more like a Christmas tree with this little base here, but that's okay. So, yeah, that's my pyramid. And that's really all for the pyramid. So we will switch over to our Pickems. And here we are, signed in, Risk Dreams account. It's my personal account. Then we have Major 4. It starts on the 31st. So, yeah, it actually starts on Friday. Cool. In our matches. So we have all 3 days. So this is week 1 in the qualifier matches. So not necessarily going to explain too much because, I mean, really, if you think someone's going to win, it's because they're just going to win. So let's see here. We have Breach versus Vegas. Vegas making the team change. Okay, I think it's going to be 3-2 Breach. So I feel like it's going to go a game 5. However, Vegas is better. I feel like I Search and Destroy and Breach seem to be not great at those game 5. So we'll do Vegas. We'll do this. It has to be a 3-0, maybe 3-1. We'll do 3-1. Thieves here over the Ravens, then double points. Yeah, makes sense. FaZe, I feel like FaZe Subliners, 3-1. FaZe has been looking really good. Subliners on a fall. Saturday, week 1, we have Mutineers Rocker. Yeah, I don't like this Rocker squad. They just have not been pulling anything together. So yeah, I think 3-1 Mutineers. 3-1 or 3-2. Regardless, I think Mutineers are gonna win. This Ultra squad probably also gonna beat this Breach team. However, this Breach team I feel like has been playing pretty well. But I feel like 3-1 makes a lot of sense. Maybe even a 3-0. You know what? We'll put 3-0. Let's see. I feel like it might be 3-1, but just if I'm right, I'm gonna look like a genius. So we'll put 3-0 for Toronto. Rocker, Gorillas 3-2, maybe. Yeah, I like Gorillas 3-2. I kind of like Surge here 3-2 over Thieves. Ultra 3-2 over Surge makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like this Optic squad had a very close game to the Ravens, or a very close series to the Ravens. I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. They'll probably beat them 3-0. And then FaZe, Mutineers. Hey, we'll put 3-1 because you can't count them out. So this is our week 1. Save these predictions. Bam. Week 2, we have Breach Ravens. Breach 3, Ravens 2, Surge Mutineers, Subliners, Rocker. This is probably going to be a close one. Vegas Legion. Yeah, we'll put 3-2. I feel like it's difficult for Vegas to get 3-1 wins, especially with the way that their respawns look. But if they're able to push it to that game 5, then they typically close it out. Thieves, Gorillas, 3-1, I think. Same thing here. 3-2. Ultra FaZe. This is interesting. I'm gonna take FaZe here. Although I'm gonna take FaZe here. I feel like that's safe. I feel like you can't count against FaZe. Let's see. Vegas Gorillas. Okay, so Vegas Gorillas, I think is gonna be 3-2 Gorillas or 3-2 Vegas, or maybe 3-1 Vegas. Yeah, maybe 3-1 Vegas. Ultra, probably 3-1. Mutineers here. Optic, probably 3-2 Thieves here. Ultra, maybe 3-1 Legion. Legion maybe pull off the Search and Destroy one, but that's probably it. Optic probably wins this 3-2 or 3-1. FaZe 3-1. New York Ravens. Feels bad for the Ravens, man. It's just, I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. I'm not sure how I can have them beating any of these squads. Optic, Thieves, Breach, Vegas, New York. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately, for this Ravens squad. I have them going 0-5. Vegas 3-2 against Mutineers. Optic Breach, we saw them win 3-0 last game. Give them 3-1. Then we have FaZe Surge. This is also interesting. I think we have FaZe 3-2 here. Can't count against FaZe. You know what? Maybe there's an upset. Maybe we have 3-2 Surge. Maybe there's an upset here. Surge, off the back of a FaZe win, they're not losing to the Gorillas. Thieves beat the Rocker 3-2. And you know what? Give me Breach beating Subliners here. I like Breach beating Subliners there. So let's save this, save that, and then let's kind of look at what we got. So let's see if we have anything like kind of sticking out to us. Although I kind of already pressed save predictions, right? So this would mean the FaZe go 2 wins there, a win there, a win there. We would have FaZe winning their week 5-0, or their qualifiers 5-0. The Ultra 1 win, 2 wins, 3 wins. We would have them going 4-1. Optic, there's 1 win, there's 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins. The Optic, I feel like I have a little bit of an easier road, going 5-0. Ravens, Thieves, New York, Boston, Gorillas. Really, I feel like Boston is the only like question mark here. Maybe Thieves as well, but I feel like Thieves haven't really been informed. And then on the lower end, we have Gorillas and Ravens really struggling. Same thing with Mutineers really struggling. Same thing with Rocker really struggling. So we'll see how this pans out. But that's really all we have here for Major 4. I'm excited. As you see here, we have Major 4, 5, and then Champs is here. So it's really getting down towards the end of the season. Every team's going to want to get as many CDL points as they possibly can. The race is on, and I'm here for it. So let's see what happens. And thank you guys for following me or joining me. If you have watched this far, follow all of our socials on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch at Risk Factor Pod. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will be here again next time. Peace out.